So I think we had some preliminary questions, which
Sure.
were just the scope of it all. So how many people, how many cars?
Right.
It's the health and
The
safety
statistics,
stuff. you
yes,
know,
right.
I think
It's the health and safety.
the Huzzy Powwow, there would be easily anywhere from 100 to 150 cars,
Okay.
because it's open to the public.
Mhm.
Just the people putting on the powwow, that's probably 50 to 75 people
Okay.
within.
How many cars? That would include?
I would say that would include.
About
That's
that many
included.
cars.
I would say that would include that.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Yeah.
And it was an event that was open to the public, so you could never really,
Sure.
you could gauge it, but
Yeah.
there weren't all that many people that would attend it.
And what did you do? So the Hussey Field is just going up River Road.
On River Road, yes.
And
First bridge.
First Bridge.
Yeah.
That's Hussey
Cross the
Field.
river from the first.
As opposed to, okay, I know there's like Hussey Farmland and stuff.
Oh, yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, on River Road.
And then how did you do with toilets and
That
ambulance and all the
would be
things?
something that the powwow would take care of. We always had porta potties, and they did all the permitting that was
Yeah.
needed.
Mhm.
They even had Betty Holmes, she would
Yeah.
come and make sure that the pets were tended to, anybody who had pets, or she would, she also loved to attend the powwows, but. So that, there are a lot of details that the council takes care of.
Okay.
I know I'm not directly on the council now, I probably will be, but I've certainly done some other,
Have you been down to the, to that site since we last held a pit town?
I don't think I've been down there since,
Yeah. What's happened down there is the farmers have expanded their area cultivation down there.
Yeah.
So a lot of that space that was formerly empty
Right.
isn't.
right,
And so the concern, I think, not gonna speak for the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, but the concern was, is there enough area there to absorb that many vehicles? And then the second to that
Yeah.
equation is the access through the Forest Service property is not deeded. So it's sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was kind of that said, the Upper Saco Valley Land Trust indicated that they would like to be as flexible as possible.
Mhm.
Yeah, they would like to
Yeah.
support the event and all the intent. It's how it fits in with the health and safety,
Right.
basically. Yeah.
right. And I would really, Court, I would have to go down there to see
Yeah.
what it looks like today
Yeah.
as opposed to
Do
years
you thi-
ago.
I'm just questioning whether or not the school on the opposite side of the tracks has that area goes way out to the river. And there's plenty of parking at the school. I'm wondering if the school would be amenable to it.
Yeah,
I know this about the schools, they protect their sports fields.
Oh,
So all the sports fields, they'll
Yeah.
say absolutely not for vehicles and
Oh,
stuff like
okay.
that.
Yeah.
Foot traffic maybe, but even
Yeah.
then they protect it pretty,
Yeah.
because
yeah,
it's a lot of investment just to get it the way it is.
Yeah, right,
So the non-sports fields part of the school, maybe,
Mhm.
but all the sports fields parts, I can pretty much say that they would say no to that.
that's worth the
Just
ask.
wondering if there's a way to get to either that or the other field, the 16 field, that's.
Crossing over the tracks. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Oh,
But there wouldn't be a way that would be really difficult to get the vehicles to, because it's got a wet spot there.
yeah.
And it's that's all sports fields too, really.
No, I'm talking about the, on the Albany Town Forest.
Side.
Yeah, so you could, but you'd have to park at the school, the parking would have to be at the school,
Mhm.
so there'd be some walking required.
Mhm.
Yeah. And again, the powwow is primarily made up of people 70 and older. Well,
Mhm.
not, I mean, it's not a young group,
Yeah,
and so there's always that to factor in.
yeah.
And I'm really here just to see if there's any opportunity to take advantage of a space that could benefit from a powwow,
Yes.
whether it's the coal bath house or, I mean, just trying to think, and I haven't had the time to drive around to
Yeah,
do any investigating, but
Yeah.
just,
Are you looking, is it this needed for this season?
no, not for this year.
Okay, okay.
And, you know, maybe not even next year. I
Okay.
just don't want this
Yeah.
to go away.
mhm.
So it's not like it's time sensitive.
Just trying to wondering about alternatives. around
Right.
there.
Yeah, open spaces.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And I mean, I've approached, I mean, I was related to the Hussies by marriage. I mean, I could go to Justin and say,
Yeah.
hey, do you have anything on, you know, the site that you were across from the
Yeah.
farm?
Yeah.
Right.
That's where my mom and Doc got married, or they had their reception there.
Mhm.
And so that's an option too for me, but I just wanted to start with Albany first to see if
Yeah.
there was anything. You know, again, I'm just thinking the Waldorf School it's such a tough terrain, but it's an
Yes.
open space, wouldn't necessarily be conducive to,
I mean, the town picnic was, you know, really only had 30 cars, something like that.
you know,
And now there's less space.
Right.
So less space,
Yeah.
not only to set up,
right.
but less space to.
And I never
to
really
serve
thought,
cars.
Court, that space would work,
Yeah,
knowing what
yeah.
I've seen.
Everything that's closer to the ranger station has all been cultivated.
Which is great,
Right, yeah,
that's great.
right,
Glad to see it utilized.
yeah.
So that was really the purpose of this,
Mhm.
was to start a conversation and to continue pursuing
Yeah.
the avenues that,
Yeah.
Well, and this way you have, you know, this many more people that are now,
right.
you know,
Do you think
Networking.
Kawasaki of interest would have any ideas, you know, for that or
Spaces?
Yeah.
Alternate spaces.
alternate spaces?
It's a good question to ask,
Yeah.
so
Right.
I will
Right,
ask. I'm
Thank you.
here on the Conservation Commission, I'm
Thank
also
you.
on the board of land trust. So.
And I have been told that, and that this is a plug for the powwow folks, they leave the property, they leave the land better than they arrive.
Yeah.
It's a very sacred thing,
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
so they take very good care of the property,
Wonderful.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Not to
awesome.
say that there might not be a problem, but I
Right,
do
yes.
know in general they are very,
Mhm.
very, you
Yeah.
know, land sensitive.
As long as the land is set up to handle
Yes.
150 vehicles.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So if
And a
it's,
couple of porta potties.
if it's just a field and it rains, it's gonna get torn up, but it's gotta have a road basically,
Yeah.
something that can handle.
Something that, and you know, I'm thinking in terms of an ambulance going into,
Yes.
Mhm.
been there, to
Yeah.
see
Yes.
that, so.
How did Hussey's Field work in the event of rain? I don't remember there.
It worked great.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, it was wide open, it would be nice to have some shade, but no,
Yeah.
as far as the field, it was perfect.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mhm.
people could drive right to their
Right,
sites and set up their RVs with their vending
Mhm.
tents, and that worked out well.
I just have to, so Town of Conway, they just gave a hard no, or they,
I'm gonna work on
yeah, just,
Town of Conway, I am, because it's a great site.
it's a great site.
And we shared the space with the Saco tubing.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
There's one driveway that goes into the field, and then there's the roundabout there, and that worked out fairly well.
Yeah,
I would,
pursue it, yeah,
Town,
pursue
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I think that,
Yeah.
yeah.
And even if, I mean, if they're concerned about the river eroding, they've gotta be concerned about the river eroding. For, you know, riprap is
Right, yeah.
available, the golf course certainly had to do something.
Well, when you
Yeah,
guys
right.
are always in that corner up there, it's back from the river quite a ways.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is, so, well, I wanna thank you for your time and.
All right,
Well, thank you for coming down and presenting.
Nice to
us
see you
this.
all.
Yeah.
And
good luck.
I was gonna take your bag home.
And congratulations again on your appointment to,
To be an elder.
your ascendancy.
Elder
to-
council,
Yeah.
I think, no. Thank you very much.
Take care, Jen.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Well, that's good. Well, next on our agenda, the second appointment tonight is Mr. Tim Nolan, who has some information for us about Bald Hill. Again, it's nice to put the face to the name. I see your name a lot.
Well, thank you all.
So-
And you know, the last time we did anything for the town, Don's still owned the company, so he was the point man. I did the work, but he was the one in here meeting with you.
Right.
So I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to meet a whole board of people I don't know.
No.
Anyway, I'm here in regards to the gypsy moth damage in the valley. We've been looking at it for the last couple of years, and wondering when it was necessary to assess. And in conversations with Bill Davidson down at Division of Forest Lands, he's a health specialist down there, we decided we would wait till this spring, which would till everything had leafed out, and then he came up. We met with Greg from Upper Saco Valley. Jeff from the Nature Conservancy was supposed to be there, but he had hurt his calf, so it was just Bill and Greg and myself. But we looked at Town Conway lands, Nature Conservancy lands, Upper Saco Valleys. We didn't make it here, but we looked at the same kind of sites and what the trees are. And he was somewhat surprised at the amount of mortality that we're seeing. He's been, the literature would suggest that it would take more than 2 years of defoliation to cause the amount of mortality that we're seeing. And the thought is that it was coupled with the really severe growing season droughts that we had. Because where we're seeing the mortality is mostly on the really dry sites. There is some irregularity on wetter sites where you're seeing more mortality than you'd expect. But one of the more severely impacted areas is the town's lot here on Bald Hill Road. That and the Green Hills. I actually just started my first salvage cut. It's up on West Side Road, Vernon Smith Plumbing,
Yes,
Tom
yeah.
Smith's
Sure,
piece there. He's got a 70-acre woodlot. There's probably 35, 40 acres of it where 90+% of the oak didn't leaf out this spring. And we've thinned through it twice in the last 30 years. It's beautiful, small saw log, and it's just dead. So now I'm seeing it go through a debarker, and the bark is starting to slip on it, which is not a great sign. So I wanted to approach the town. I went for a walk up there today before the meeting, and it's kind of what you fear. You get up into the, on the forest type map, what we delineated as stand 1, which is a beech oak stand, and I would say in excess of 70% of the oak didn't leaf this spring. There is some epicormic sprouting in the boles and the lower canopy trying to keep the trees alive, which in conversations with Bill Davidson, he says, it's the tree's last ditch effort. And unfortunately this spring we had that horrible frost, and so you had a lot of trees making a final effort to put leaves on, and then getting that, it's just like another year of defoliation. So the town is looking at a lot of mortality in the oak. There's a lot of value there. It's a significant amount. Without going out and trying to tally it, which I don't think is necessary, I would say probably well in excess of $30,000 worth of oak that's not going to be a lot. If it is still clinging to life, it won't be for long, and you will have lost the value. So wanted to approach the town and say, what does the town want to do? Do we want to try and implement a salvage harvest in there and try and recoup some of that value? We're going to be doing it for the town of Conway. Greg was going to come to the board. I don't know if you've had that meeting yet. But at the next one, he's going to be bringing it up. It's what do we want to do on the western slopes of Pine Hill. And this fall, we're going to be doing a bunch of work on the Nature Conservancy on the Marshall, the Green Hills Wildlife Management Area, the old Kennett Pit piece there. And that's actually part that wasn't planned for gypsy moth salvage. That was part of a climate resiliency project that Sean was involved with Upper Saco Valley, and it's just kind of dovetailing together where we're looking at the area that we were planning on doing a harvest in. We've got a tremendous amount of mortality to cope with as well. So my recommendation to you, if it were my town forest, I would want to see the town capture that value. From a silvicultural perspective, it's really tough. You've got a stand that's basically good quality oak and poor quality beech. And, if you go in and just selectively pull the oak out in little clusters here and there, you're going to just perpetuate a beech forest. I think from a silvicultural perspective, I look at putting some significant patch cuts in, leaving, you know, buffers and uncut areas in which you're going to lose some of the oak that remains. But I think that by putting some good sized holes in there, you'll hopefully be able to encourage enough species other than beech in the regeneration, you know, light loving species like birch. The shade, what was
It
that?
doesn't seem like there's gonna be a lot of oak regeneration because of the acorn crops must have been really.
That was the next thing I was gonna say, is that oak acorns, they take 2 years to produce. In 2020, it just happened to not be an acorn seed year. Then 2021 and 2022 was defoliation, there were no acorns. This year, there's no acorns. So we're looking at 4 years without any seed source. The trees that are still clinging to life may coppice sprout, and something that we're really hoping occurs in some of these spots. Because as a seed regeneration, we're just not getting it. I mean, the management plan calls for managing the stand 4 oak, and that is kind of out the window.
Yeah.
One good thing is it is an unbelievable white pine seed year. Not that there's a lot of pine on the hillside, but pine seed does blow around a fair bit. And I would certainly, any pine that were up there, I would leave. It would be a good time to be scratching around in hopes that you may get that. That would filter into patch cuts fairly well. Pine isn't as shade intolerant as, say, aspen or paper birch, but it certainly isn't shade tolerant either. It would do well on that site. In terms of timing, I would say the sooner the better. Now, the access is a bit of an issue in terms of timing. As wet as it is right now, you've got the old landing down here that you're going to have to use again, which the landing itself is fine.
Would you show a map?
Yeah.
I don't know where
Yep,
the
I'm sorry.
landing is.
Yeah, it's old and grown up. You'd have to really look for it if you don't
Water
know what
tank
you
is there, and
see it.
it's right before it starts to steepen back up there. It's kind
Yeah,
of goes.
if you look, there's a big log they put right out next to the road. Of course, the landing is filled with pine trees.
He's gonna say look for the
Yeah.
thick pine trees.
Yeah.
So this is going up Bald Hill.
Yep.
The water tank is on. Oh, water tank's here, right?
Yeah, it's down
Communications
below.
towers over there or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's about halfway up the road frontage. It's right on the side of the road. It would need to be expanded. You do have the wetland crossing to deal with to get over the hillside right out of the back of the landing. And right now it's never been wetter. I mean, it's the month we've just had is ridiculous. It would be an awful time to jump in there right now. That being said, it would be nice to accomplish it on dry ground. For 2 reasons. I mean, obviously the sooner the better on the oak. Although I don't think, in talking with some of the log buyers, oak isn't like pine where you're gonna have the borer holes getting into it. They basically said as long as the outer portions of the wood aren't getting punky, and how oak gets that kind of spongy, it gets that dry, you can take your hands and go like that. As long as that's not happening to it, the logs should still be worth value. Or still be worth what they are as logs. And then there's some products like mat logs for some of the lower grade oak that is no factor. They could be standing dead for 4 or 5 years and they'd still use that. The pulpwood markets are fouled up right now, which is going to make the logistics of the sale harder. Right now, both Sappy and ND Paper aren't buying much wood. Sappy did a really poor job last winter of predicting the paper markets and buying the appropriate amount of wood. And right now, they haven't bought in any significant wood since the first week of May in an attempt to draw inventory down. ND Paper has a planned shutdown of the mill in, I believe it's later in August, about 2 months to rebuild. I can't remember whether there was a big chunk of the mill, they're rebuilding it. So they're trying to draw their inventory down. So the pulp markets are not great right now. The oak saw log markets are not quite what they were a year ago, but they're in good shape. So That being said, I guess I don't have a concrete time. There's so much is up in the air between the weather and the markets, but I would say the sooner you could do it, the better. And if it were to dry out enough later this summer or early fall, it would be nice to do it on bare ground because you'll get much better scarification, scratching up of the soil, which would be super to get done while the seed is falling this fall rather than on snow in the wintertime where the ground is protected. You're still going to get some germination of the seed, but you get a better germination rate with scratched up ground.
Would there be contractors available?
Yeah, I have several that do a lot of work for me that basically I can just say I've got this job and they'll do it. I have some question in my mind, and I talked about this in the management plan, and I kind of like the idea of using cut-to-length equipment, a little bit lighter on the ground. You don't need as big of a landing. The wetland crossing would be easier. It would retain the top wood. It's not chipping. I mean, it's pulling the logs and pulp out, but all the limbs and stuff remain on the site, so you've got good nutrient recycling. Drawbacks to it would be if the pulpwood market is tough, you don't have as much of a chipping option. Because sometimes, if the pulpwood markets continue the way they are, some of the oak top limb wood, the stuff that isn't great for the firewood market, is going to end up going through a chipper just to get marketed. So the benefits to doing a whole tree job like what we did on the Albany Town Forest is it's cleaner. They're able to market the top wood into the fuel wood market or fuel chip markets. If the pulpwood markets are tight, aesthetically it's more pleasing because you don't have all that limbwood top wood. Drawback is it takes a little bit bigger landing. The wetland crossing isn't quite as handy. So we could make either one of them work. I guess it just kind of depends on when we get in there and what things are looking like. If you guys decide to go ahead with this.
The 30,000, is that a gross figure, or is it?
Shooting from the hip, I wouldn't be surprised if that was net. I mean, there's a lot of wood up there because if we end up doing some significant patch cuts, in looking at I just glanced at the, value and volume figures. And thinking, if there's around 200,000 feet of oak on the property, probably the lion's share of it is in that stand on that chunk of it. And certainly we're not going to get all of it. There's going to be areas that aren't appropriate to harvest. There's going to be buffers. There's going to be that. But if there was, say, just 100,000 feet of oak that were to get salvaged, on here, at the time that I wrote the plan, the oak market was such that I think I gave an average value of $225. In today's market, I'm guessing it would average probably closer to like $325, $350. So if there's 100,000 feet, you're looking at there's $32,000 in gross proceeds. Then you have all the pulpwood, and the firewood market is really good. There's a lot of the beech in that stand would end up in the firewood market. There's a lot of mat logs, which when they're doing power line maintenance, those timber mats that they put down, the logs that they saw those cants out of. The market for them is great right now. I think stumpage value is close to $200 a thousand to the landowner for something. So you're taking a pallet grade log that would otherwise be worth $30, $40, $50 a thousand to the landowner and paying nearly what good grade white pine logs are. So that market
for beech,
for any hardwood species except ash or aspen. Okay. It's to the point now where if you take an oak tree, if you have a 16-foot long, because they have to be 16 foot long, if you have a 16-foot long section, if you're looking at, say, the bottom 8-foot oak log might go number 2, and the second one would go pallet, you're better off cutting it into a 16-foot mat log because your overall return is greater on it. That market's just been increasing, both in demand and price over the last, I'm gonna say 7, 8, 9 years. It's really been a lot of value added. That and the firewood market right now, there doesn't seem to be any end of demand for processor grade firewood to these big companies that split it up. quite a bit of value added over pulpwood there. You know, right now, I wanna say on the job I'm doing right up here in Conway, the crew is paying $10 a ton for the stumpage on the firewood, which is, you know, that's $300 a truckload for pulpwood grade stuff, which is, it's super. It adds up nicely. So, you know, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, and again, this is just shooting from the hip, you know, I wandered up there for the first time in 10, 12 years today,
Yeah.
and spent half an hour walking around just so I could speak a little bit knowledgeably to you guys tonight, but I mean, there's a lot of wood up there.
Tin Mountain did a salvage operation just recently, right?
They did, I think it was last
Yeah.
winter, on the other, basically across the street and downhill from it. I think it was one section of some particularly good oak that they were worried about. And they were finding the same thing, that, you know, the trees are dry. They're just not coming back into it.
Well, doesn't sound like there's much choice in a lot of ways.
No,
Yeah, it's either that or let it stand and die. That
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't
No,
make
it
any sense at
doesn't.
all.
I mean, not only are you from a, you know, financial standpoint, you're losing the value, but
It's the regeneration.
yeah, it's gonna be nothing but beach. That's, you know, walking through the woods, because now you have all those oaks, the canopies have opened up, and the understory is just saying, thank you very much, you
Yep.
know.
So I take it anything that hasn't leaked out this year is probably dead.
No, I don't think that it's gonna come back. I mean, the trees that they're cutting actively right now, and they just started last Wednesday and didn't work Monday and Tuesday, so we're 4 days into this job. But just the wood itself, isn't weighing up good where they're chipping the tops. You know, they're getting about 4 tons a truckload less just because there's no moisture in it. And the logs themselves, when you buck them up, even though they're only a couple of days old, look like they've been sitting around for a while. So, yeah, and talking with the guy running the tree saw, he says you can feel there's no moisture in it. Just, I mean, he obviously does it enough. I don't know what it would feel like, but his comment was, yeah, the trees are dry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably less
Yeah,
hard on the machine, I mean.
maybe it chatters more or something.
Yeah.
I mean, my recommendation, and if it were my town forest and I was a taxpayer, I would want to see it cut. One other thing that we have to consider, I had forgotten about it, but I was reading the plan, is there was a Natural Heritage Bureau hit of...
Yes.
Small World Begonia.
Yep, and I believe it was up in there, we would need to get, or I would need to get that squared away in terms of where it is, figure out what would be appropriate buffers around the area, what we're gonna do to protect it, you know, and that was another.
Two things there, that or autumn coral root and three-bird orchid. I think it's in that neighborhood.
And yeah, autumn coral root,
Yeah.
small world begonia, and three-bird orchid have
Yeah.
been identified. Now, I wouldn't know what any of those look like, but I'd be willing to bet I could talk Jeff into going up. Come show me these, Jeff.
Yeah, the Forest Service has mapped all the Small World Begonia just over the line. There's some on that piece up there.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some stuff that's very close to the property line there.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised if it's spilled over.
So it would just be a matter of figuring out the areas that we would stay out of. And again, you know, I mean, that stand 1 is 52 acres, and then there's some stand 2 down low, although a bunch of it is fairly wet. In no way am I saying we should put a 52 acre clear cut up there. I don't think that's stomachable for just about anyone. But I could see a whole bunch of 3 to 5 acre patches, or maybe 2 to 4s, you know, 2 to 5 acre holes. You know, putting some buffers in between them, looking at, you know, potentially doing some interior inclusions within the patch cuts. Maybe we leave small clusters within it to give some diversity. Even, and again, we're knowing that a lot of what we're leaving is going to either convert to beech or be standing dead oak. But I would try and get the very best of it out. You know, any of the spots where you had really good stuff, I would aim for that, for sure.
So the beech would get harvested as well.
Yeah, within
That's
these
better.
patch cuts area, we're starting from scratch. You're
Yeah.
gonna cut everything down right to the saplings and start over and hope that we can get something besides beech growing there.
And then what about planting? Throwing some, you know. I was just thinking of Dan talking about
I
the,
know, and TNC is doing some experiments with this on the Green Hills Preserve. It's incredibly expensive because not only do you have the planting expense, and up there they're working with kind of assisted migration. So you have the expense of it, but then you have protection because most of the species you plant would be much more preferred than the native species that are going to be coming back from a browse
for
perspective.
food, yeah.
So TNC, I'm working on the management plan that we've got to run by Fish and Game for this harvest we're doing.
Yeah.
So they're working with Tony D'Amato at a UVM there. He's got his and Jeff's, you know, kind of collaborative effort, but they're talking about trying to protect half of them with those tubes, and they have funding to do all this on an experimental level. I think it's a great idea, but I don't know if you could justify the expense.
And is there such a thing as seed scatter? Like, or is it, you actually plant saplings? Right?
They're planting bare rootstock
'Cause I was
saplings.
just thinking of Dan talking about the elm, right? With the,
Elm wouldn't be what's up there on
not
the
the elm,
black birch.
no, the 98% American, 2%.
Oh, the chestnut.
The chestnut.
Those are a fortune. Those are like 25 or 30 bucks a seed.
For saplings, seedling saplings, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't actually just get seeds and.
No, I have a disease-resistant American chestnut in my yard that I planted in 2000 that's been bearing seed for a few years here. And I know of another, and it's the only one around, so I haven't been getting viable seeds. In the last couple of years, we've been trying to conduct some pollination. I know where there's some other trees. We've been cutting limbs off and bringing them back and forth, and we've yet to find a viable seed, but I'm trying. Deb Marnich from NRCS, somewhere over in Lovell, she got a whole bunch of seed. Because they started a bunch just in solo cups in the NRC office. This was several years ago. I can't remember where it was. But if we could find something like that, I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
You know, trying to scatter seed, or if we could get a pile of little ones, you know, then it might be, you know, if you didn't have to pay for it and could maybe do like a volunteer day to put up some, you know, barriers, I would be all for that.
Yeah.
But for the town to lay out thousands and thousands of dollars.
For saplings, yeah. I was thinking scatter seeds, and hopefully, I don't know if that has
If you had
any
bare,
chance of a take. Or
if
not.
you had bare ground, I think that with some of the lighter, I don't know where you'd source the seed. It's something I could look into, but I would look at like black birch seed. I think that would do well on a droughty site up there. You know, it's native to within 20 miles here. I mean, there's some in there's stands of it in Tamworth, Effingham.
Yeah.
It's not like you're going the route that TNC is thinking about and bringing stuff from southern New Hampshire like chestnut oak and, you know, different white oaks and things like that up. If you could manage to get it done on bare ground and had really well scarified soil and could come up with a bag, I mean, even if you had to spend hundreds of dollars and get some black birch seeds, something like that, I think that would be very much worthwhile, because I can't see why it wouldn't take if you were broadcasting it onto disturbed ground in the same time of year when it would normally come down. I'm assuming it's a fall seeded species. Certainly something we could look into. And as we talk more with TNC about this project and get into it more, maybe I can try and pick their brain and say, what other options might there be besides doing bare rootstock seeding?
White pine, not suitable.
White pine is very suitable. It's something that I'm going to hope for. Don't know if, and there's that seed will fall in September. That's when it's typically hitting the ground. I always say it's somewhere between Labor Day and Columbus Day.
Do people stop white pine seedlings?
The State Forest Nursery does down in Boscawen. I would be more inclined to wonder if we could just get pine seed if we had bare ground rather. I think we'd get more bang for our buck if we had disturbed soil, just throwing down seed rather than trying to plug seedlings in, because then you have to worry about, you know, drought more because you're putting bare root in the ground. It's certainly a possibility. If you were going to plant anything, white pine wouldn't be a bad one, although you're committing to doing something to assist it along, because no matter what we do, we're going to get beech regeneration. Some of these hardwood species can grow fast enough with enough sunlight to outcompete beech. Pine's going to struggle for a few years, and we'd have to do some hardwood control.
Hemlocks, same.
Not a great
slow.
site for it. Slow growing. Even in the best of circumstances, slow growing. It's very shade tolerant. So what we're doing up there on the hill, creating significant openings of several acres in size, would provide enough sunlight that anything else would outcompete hemlock. Hemlock's strategy is to grow in the shade really slowly for 75 years, and then when one or two trees fall down or get cut around it, it's right there and says, "Oh, here we are." I can remember in college being given little, cookies of hemlock stem in a magnifying glass and having to count.
Hundreds of rings.
It's amazing. What's really impressive is how they will respond after being stunted for so long. They still have the ability, when given the chance, to perk up and grow. No, I mean, I really think, if we, and again, I've never tried this. If you could get really light seeded species like aspen seed would be a good one that, that you could broadcast around. Paper birch, black birch. I don't know if there's somewhere where you can get those seeds in bulk. And I'll do some asking because...
That's too, that same conference, we sat with a woman that was at the UNH Cooperative Extension. That
Wendy
had,
Scribner, yep.
Yeah, and she had seed.
I can ask her.
Seed
I have to
knowledge.
I have to talk with her about some tree farm stuff here in the next couple of weeks, so I can ask her.
Well, sounds like we should make a proposal.
Yeah. Would you write up a contract or some sort of explanation that I could?
Yeah, for sure. And I think, are you gonna have a meeting next month?
Here we are now.
Sounds we are.
Because let's plan on, I'll come to next month with some homework done,
Okay.
a real concrete proposal. I'll try and spend some more time out there and get a better handle on things. In a month, hopefully, we'll know a little bit better what the pulp market's doing.
Okay.
We'll know whether it's gonna ever stop raining.
Let it dry out a little bit.
Because even if you gave me a go-ahead today, I'd say, well, we probably gotta wait a month for it to dry out at the very least, because even if it stopped raining today, it's gonna take weeks. It's so wet. The only reason that I've managed to keep jobs going is because they're on wicked sandy ground that I was kind of saving for fall mud season. And we're burning them now just to keep people busy. So let's, I didn't want to put a lot of time into it until I talked with you guys and found out if you were interested in going forward with it. One thing that we'll probably have to do is I will write up some sort of an addendum to the management plan to give to Upper Saco Valley, because we need to serve them notice. I can't remember if it was 15 or 30 days. But they're supposed to read and approve the plan. So I'm going to try and get an addendum that basically states, these are the conditions that we're faced with, these are the decisions we're making, because technically the plan is, a year out of date.
Right, yeah.
And we had been emailing back and forth about that. It may be a good opportunity, and this is just because I served on my town's conservation commission and understand how it is to get funding appropriated. Might be an opportunity to get the funding for your management plan update out of the stumpage proceeds before they go into the general fund and you have to beg for it back.
Yeah. Or can we have it all directed into the conservation
I
fund?
think Well, you, Tim, you may know this, I presumed it went into the.
I don't know, like I said, Dawn was the liaison between
Yeah.
my
I
company
think that's how
and
it
the
works
town
in
last time.
Conway, yeah, or at the minimum, Conway Conservation Commission takes a chunk out of it.
The way it works in Conway is that when they do timber harvesting, they have to pay the town back for their annual budget, and then they get anything above and beyond that.
The Conservation Commission does.
Yeah,
Hey,
it
that's
goes
our
into their
problem,
land
budget's
protection
not
or
very high,
stewardship
so.
fund, yeah.
It's not a problem, our budget's not very high.
Yeah, I
so-
mean, I think that Conway Conservation Commission budget is generally $18,000 a year for all their management.
We're 10% of that.
Yeah. So, yeah, it may be a good opportunity to get some other stuff done.
Yes.
So I guess we'll see you next month. So are you going to be August?
First.
First. Yep.
It's the
All right.
first Tuesday of the month.
Coming right up.
Yeah, it's amazing how the
Yeah.
summer's just flying
Right.
by.
It doesn't
I
feel
know.
like summer yet.
It
Until
hasn't
No.
started yet.
today's the first day of summer, right?
Yeah.
It felt
First
it
time.
today. So I guess I'll come to the next meeting with, a better idea, and maybe some answers to some of the questions that we've generated.
So
Kind of
we check-
spitballing about.
So we can check with Upper Saco Valley Land Trust regarding those sensitive plant areas.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll do a NHB review, and they'll give me the map showing the areas on it, and I will, I'll talk with Greg and see if he's aware, if, maybe although he hasn't been around long enough to.
Is this part under the easement? I just have to.
Yeah.
It
I
is.
believe the entire thing
Yes.
was.
Yeah.
It's not just the river part.
No,
The
no,
upper
No.
part's part of
Yeah.
the easement
Mhm.
too.
Yep.
Because we were talking about selling it and stuff, but then.
where we're at, we basically were kind of thinking trading it or using that.
With the easement in
right,
place.
to pick up maybe another parcel someplace else.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That was a
because
past
they're
discussion.
not- Because they're not contiguous.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a past discussion, not really relevant to this. I was just trying to clarify in my mind.
I'm certainly under the impression that the easement covers it, 'cause I mean.
Oh, it does,
Yeah.
it does.
Alright, well, I guess you guys know how to get a hold of me, so if in the course of the next month you come up with questions or things you want me to have information about at the next meeting, let me know.
Okay.
I will do the same with you guys. And I'll speak with Upper Saco Valley. I've had this conversation with Greg already as we've been walking around. He's very aware of what we've been thinking. And I'll just ask him in what format he might want an addendum, and just kind of see what I have to do. And I'll hit the paperwork to them. And like I said, I would love to do this not on snow, but it's going to require significantly dry ground, not
The
just.
window about this big between
Yeah.
wet and winter.
Yeah. And I mean, the past couple of years, it's been so dry in the early part of the summer, we easily could have done it. But I was up there today and there's just water running, that crossing in between the landing and the hill is 20 feet wide. And I mean, both of the companies that I would think I would use have portable steel bridges that would span that, but we need lower flow than what we've got now.
Gives you an idea what the rest of the woods are like anyways.
Yeah,
so.
the beauty of it is once you get up on the hill, it's bone dry. Rocky, but dry.
Right, right.
All right.
All right.
Well, thanks for your time. Thanks for your
Thank you.
patience on we're trying to figure out, like you said, the funding on the management.
Yeah,
plan,
no
but
problem.
Let's not solve
To be
that
frank,
problem.
I didn't
That's
have time
right.
to do it this morning anyway,
Yeah.
so that
Thank
worked
you
out
for
just fine.
proactively bringing this stuff.
Yeah, it's been on kind of my list as I've been looking at all of these properties I manage and stressing about it because, I was just a little kid the last time we had a really bad gypsy moth infestation. I can remember on my parents' farm. Peter Pohl was the old county forester, came by and looked at it with my grandfather, and it didn't get hit nearly this bad, and they didn't do any salvage, and it was fine.
Yeah.
But I can remember it, but
Yeah.
I was just a kid.
Yeah.
And then even talking with Don when this first hit, he's like, "Oh yeah, it'll peter out. You're not going to see much mortality, And here we are looking. I mean, they've killed more hemlock than they have
Yeah.
oak,
It's ridiculous.
which is
We noticed that.
the guy from the state when we were walking around. He says, You're not gonna find that in a textbook. He says this is unprecedented. They're actually gonna be bringing up a brand new drone they have and flying this area. It's got some sort of fancy IR camera that measures, I don't know, what the trees are putting out, and it can tell tree species based on the light and the health of the tree. So he wants to bring that up here probably the end of this month and fly all this area. We put Pine Hill into the map. We put all the DOT lands that butt up against Green Hill, put in Pond. But he was a little, we've been talking with him the last 2 years, and he's been like, we'll get a little mortality. It'll be all right. And he was up here this spring looking at it and going, well, this isn't what we've been led to believe was going to happen.
That you're at the 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And then that frost this spring was the final nail in the coffin. There were so many trees that just managed to put leaves out as a last ditch effort and then lost it.
Yeah.
So, all right, we will see you next month.
I'll put you
All right.
first on the agenda, 6:30,
Sounds good.
okay?
All right.
See you
Thank
then.
you.
Thanks, Tim.
Have a good evening.
Too.
One question I would have is, who has the authority, I guess, to sign a contract to cut the timber? Do we have that authority, or is that something the selectmen have to sign off on?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I was thinking the selectmen are having a meeting next week, the 12th. And my thought was, since we don't have a representative to the select board, that I would take the Conservation Commission to the select board, perhaps quarterly, you
That's not a
know?
bad idea, yeah.
Just to, so they're up to speed, I'm sure the minutes are available, but that was one of my, thoughts. I was like, okay, well,
That would be amazing.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes, just to keep the communication open and,
Yeah.
our relationship,
Yeah. And it's a new chair on the board. And,
yes,
Yeah.
right, so I can use that line, and
Oh, who's in your chair, I guess?
Jennifer,
Jen
Oh, okay.
Spofford.
Gotcha.
yes, Jennifer,
Jen Spofford.
yeah,
Gotcha.
so,
Okay.
yeah,
Kathy's still on, and Kelly Rubitel.
Yeah.
So it's the
Yes.
same three.
Yes,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be the question, is just who has the authority to,
Yeah,
even if we come to an agreement and say.
I can't remember who
we're
did
in
it
favor of
last time, because
Yeah.
we had to do a harvest on the lower section to help offset, we were short.
That was before we owned it, right? Did Kennett Company do that before?
I don't know how that did it, because, we got the money.
Maybe that's a possibility. I feel like we were still surveying while they were harvesting,
Yeah.
and we wouldn't. Well, I don't think the town owned it. I think the harvest was before. I bet it's probably in Tim's management
Maybe,
plan
yeah.
too. But
do we have to,
Maybe the,
because I know they did something similar on the Marshall property over in Conway too, and in that I think part of the reason was it brought the value down.
it's the price down.
But
It's
like
the
say
price
the
down.
town, it's
Yeah.
probably like a donation to kind
Yeah,
of offset things a little
I
bit.
can,
So.
I can remember that. Wonder if Trust Republic ain't got the money.
mm,
God, Rob might remember, I can't. All right.
Yeah, I guess generally, what's our consensus? I mean, I'm in favor of it. I wouldn't, I would see some issues if suddenly, if they're going in and cutting a bunch of logs and pulling logs out of there, and it's not necessarily noticed to the town, and people are like, "What's happening?" But I think generally in the town here, I don't think people are adverse to cutting a few trees.
I anticipate there'll be some
I'm sure.
objection to it,
Yeah,
just aesthetic, more than anything.
yeah.
But really, it's, to his point, it seems to be the right thing to do for the forest.
Yeah.
And it's.
Yeah, for the town.
Yeah, and it would be crazy to pass up the fund, the money.
Right. It's
Yeah,
either that or he's letting it just sit there and rot, which
Yeah.
doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, and I think the forestry would probably be healthier in the end if it was done.
Yeah.
And especially if it's just gonna regenerate in beach,
Right.
which would be crazy.
Yeah, and I think too, where Tin Mountain just did the same thing, literally across the street. I don't think anybody would question the conservation ethic of cutting trees on it. And like you said, you're always gonna have somebody who's gonna question that, but You know, Tin Mountain just did the same exact thing to salvage the wood and,
Yeah.
for
And if
for
they're
the
gonna
forest.
be doing that in, you know, in Conway,
Green Hills and
Green
all
Hills.
kinds of places,
which
yeah.
the Green Hills is just unbelievable.
Oh,
Looking
yeah.
up slope,
Yeah.
it's like, oh my god.
I mean, I remember like mountain biking there, you know, late July last summer, or the last 2 summers in the middle of July, and getting
Yeah.
sunburned in the
Yeah.
woods. You know,
Yeah.
normally you've got leaves overhead.
And
It's
it
just-
actually looks green now, so what is growing now?
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there is a lot of beach up in there.
It's
but
the understory,
yeah,
it's making,
But that's
it's
it.
giving the green, right?
yeah.
Your favorite tree.
Yeah. I don't think,
Take them out by the root.
I don't know if you could kill beach.
Take them out by the root.
Yeah, oh my
That's
gosh,
the only way.
Yeah.
it's a beach tree killer.
Even that's hard.
It is.
Alright,
Yeah, and then I guess my other question would be, you know, where does the revenue go?
Yeah,
You know, my
that's it.
understanding is, I mean, regardless of the way we've been funded in our budget and stuff, that, you know, conservation commissions are tasked with managing conservation lands, and
Mhm.
that any proceeds that come off it are supposed to go into the conservation fund coffers. Now, that being said, that's just kind of my third person view, having read
Yeah.
minutes of other conservation
Right.
commissions and stuff, but
well,
I'm willing to
that
do a
would be
little
my,
research.
that would be my
Yeah.
impression as well.
Well, especially too, where we've been tasked with, you know, any money that we wanna spend, we need to generate, and this is the only way we can generate revenue on the
Right,
forest, you know,
yeah.
we're obviously not gonna go clear cut it to
Yeah,
build giant parking lots for trails and stuff, but,
right.
you know, if this makes sense for the health of the forest and it generates revenue for projects that we wanna do in the long run, seems like it would make sense for us to
Yeah.
hold on to it.
Do any of those profits need to be divided with our partners? Or do we get it all, so it's conservation commission?
Oh, like with the land trust or
Mm.
with,
Yeah.
I
It's all town.
think it's town, yeah.
Town?
Yeah,
That's my understanding,
yeah, okay. Alright,
Yeah, I can try to do a little research into that, maybe just to kind of see, you know, Tim's experience, at least with Conway, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either, is the town is recouping their costs, that
Right.
are funding the conservation commission, you know, so that it's kind of a net zero on funding the conservation commission, but anything after that, it's kind of gravy, you know. It's not to say that it couldn't go back into the town coffers and, you know, reduce taxes and
Right.
stuff, but like I said, if that's our only way to generate revenue, you know, and it's something we can only do once, you know, we're talking about this lot, we do this now, we can't do this for another 15 years
Right.
on this lot, you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay, maybe we can, you know, do that once every 15 years on every other lot, but after 4 years, okay, well, now you're 11 years away from being able to generate any revenue again,
Right.
so, not even saying we would cut that off, but,
Mhm.
you know, it seems like we should try to hold on to that if we can.
Yes,
Okay,
agree.
all right, thank you for all your input, much appreciated all around. Back to the agenda. Oh my gosh, I didn't even put the approval in the minutes. So, thank you, my printer's down. Minutes from the June 6th meeting, did everyone get a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Are there any additions, subtractions, recommendations, discussions on those?
Thank you for the minutes, courts.
Yeah.
Court. Courts.
All right,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
all those in favor of approving the June 6th, 2023 meetings signify by saying aye. Aye. No one's opposed? If you'd like, we can just skip the old business, it's the same, just
Same
on the agenda, yes.
I think the only thing maybe just quickly related to
Yes.
the boundary maintenance plan, if they're gonna do the timber harvest in there, I'll make sure we get out there and the boundaries are all there, they're, you know,
Are they? Okay.
somebody would be able to follow them, but it's always like if you're gonna do timber harvest, you might as well just freshen them up,
Okay,
so.
okay,
It's not a very long amount of boundaries, so it would be pretty easy to go around. So, but I can make that a priority even probably in the next month, we can probably get it done in a day, so.
When it's drier.
yeah,
Yeah, wait till it's out there too, but yeah. Some of it's like you said, not, once you get up on the hillside, it's not bad, but
yeah,
it's it's kind of the lower stuff, try to avoid that if possible. So.
okay, all right, good, I will asterisk that and then you know, perhaps we can get a day to do that.
Yeah, and if it's a matter of like when Court and I did it the last time, you know, I think we did a mile in 4 hours. We were moving pretty good about killing ourselves, and that was with Court clearing and me painting. And if it's just for timber harvest, we don't really even need to clear the lines now. It's better for management in the long run to clear the lines, but you know, we can say as long as you can follow them, we could just go out and paint them, and it'd be.
Paint them and clear them after they cut.
You could do that
Yeah,
too, yeah. So.
I'd be glad to go.
Yeah, I'll certainly let
Join.
everybody know if
Yeah.
you know if the hole opens up in my schedule or something. So.
Yeah, sure, yeah, let us know,
Yeah.
we'll jump on that. Okay, great. Any other business to discuss tonight?
Did we hear anything further about Sarah Lynn Smith and fireworks? Probably not.
No, not from fireworks. I did get the map from
Oh, yes.
the irrigation,
Oh, right.
school irrigation, but I haven't seen the liability insurance yet. I need to follow up on that.
Okay.
We'll do that next week. I meant to ask Kelly about it today and I forgot to see if she'd seen it, but he did drop off the map.
And I haven't checked email, but is the map scanned and digital in some way?
No, but I don't know how to do that either.
Hand it to Kelly?
Kelly, yeah,
Hand it to
Yeah,
Kelly.
it's
Just
on
ask her
a-
to scan
Patricia
it.
can scan it, sure.
it's on a large,
Oh, 11 by 17,
17, yeah.
probably? Yeah, I
Mhm.
think she has that capability.
okay,
Most copiers can handle
To
that.
do that, yeah.
okay, and that way we can all have it.
Yeah, and I can forward it to Wayne Trust,
Okay,
because that's really,
Yes.
they need that
okay,
to approve.
okay, map and insurance liability.
Could, if you have it with you, you could probably just put it through the window with a sticky. Have it done.
I'll come down Monday. I don't
Okay.
think I'm doing anything Monday. I can
Yeah.
come down Monday and follow up on her. Because I'd like to come down here and just kind of use the table and spread things out and see if we can get organized. You have the key to the,
Yes,
Okay.
not on me. But
Okay.
yes.
right,
Yes. I can get it.
someday in my spare time.
Yeah.
Go through the files.
Yeah, I can put in last year's minutes.
Okay, all right. Good, all right. There's no public to comment. So, next meeting on the 1st, August 1st.
I'll be here on time this time. Apologize.
I'll probably be calling because that's
At a Tuesday,
back
yeah.
to back Tuesday.
Um, Double remind Jake. So, when that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I make the motion.
I'll second.
Second, okay. All those in favor of adjournment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, the meeting ends at 7:37.
That might be the longest meeting Conservation Commission
I
meeting
know.
I've ever met.
Really? Yeah.